Now, Prime Minister David Cameron is seen as a world leader who wants to develop very good relations with India. He's travelled to India a record 3 times and is keen to establish a relationship with Mr. Modi. He sat down for an interview in 10 Downing Street in the historic cabinet room to talk to NDTV's Rahul Joglekar about Prime Minister Modi, about Pakistan, who he will put his money on, given a choice between India and China.
Earlier this year, when it became clear that Mr. Narendra Modi is going to become India's Prime Minister, he received a phone call from here at 10 Downing Street. It was Prime Minister David Cameron on the line. And Prime Minister, you were one of the first world leaders to speak to Mr. Modi and congratulate him. But I want to ask you, was that the world's most awkward conversation, mainly because your government and preceding governments had pursued a policy of isolating Mr. Modi? So tell me, was that an awkward conversation?
No, not at all. It was a very warm conversation. I congratulated him on winning the biggest election, I think, in the history of the universe, which is what the Indian general election was. And I think relations will be very good. The British-India relationship is strong, and I look forward to seeing him at the G20 in Brisbane, but I also hope to welcome him here to the United Kingdom before too long.
Okay, and was it easy for you to explain this change of stance, this kind of 180-degree change in your approach towards Mr. Modi?
Well, we believe in democracy, and if someone has just been elected, then the right thing to do is to have discussions with them and meet with them and talk with them. And some of my team, including the High Commissioner, had met with Mr. Modi before the election, and as had some of my members of Parliament. So we're delighted that he's now leading India, and we'll have very strong relations with him, and also the relationship between our countries and between our peoples will be very strong. There are almost 1 million people of Indian origin here in the United Kingdom. They make an enormous contribution to our country. We're here in number 10 Downing Street, where tonight I'm holding my Diwali party. I'll be holding 2 Diwali parties this year, welcoming some of the leading lights of the British Indian community here to number 10.
Yeah. Prime Minister, I also want to talk to you a bit about, we're having this conversation in the shadow of a lot of tension between India and Pakistan across the border. There's been cross-border firing for the past few weeks. You're seen as a friend of India. Would you like to send a stern message to Pakistan?
Well, what I'd like to say is obviously we don't want to see any incursions across the line of control, and we want to see good relations between India and Pakistan. We think it's very important that India and Pakistan have those conversations, and we'll do anything we can to try and to help that. I think that's important.
Okay, Prime Minister, I want to talk to you about India's other neighbor, that's China. If you were to put your money on India or China, and you're not allowed to be diplomatic, that both are great rising powers, who would you put your money on?
I am allowed to be diplomatic because that's what Prime Ministers should do. But look, let me talk up the case for India. The case for India is a growing economy, a modernising government, a great record of growth and investment, but also I think your democracy, your rule of law, is a great selling point for India around the world. People can see in India one of the most important parts of your identity is this extraordinary, massive, vibrant democracy, where, like in our country, if you like your leaders, you can re-elect them, and if you don't like them, you can throw them out. It's a wonderful thing, democracy, brutal sometimes for prime ministers and politicians, but it's a great thing that Britain and India share.
And I will actually talk to you about 2015, but before that, also about Diwali. And, we were having this conversation just as you're about to host a Diwali party. But, Prime Minister, earlier this year, more than 120,000 people signed a petition in this country to make Eid and Diwali public bank holidays. And that petition was returned by the government, saying that it doesn't make sense on economic grounds. How would you explain this to a lot of people who feel very strongly about this?
Well, we celebrate Eid and Diwali and other religious festivals like Vaisakhi. We celebrate these things, and quite rightly, we are a successful multiracial country. But the question of bank holidays is important in terms of economic situation of Britain. We have to think, how many bank holidays should we have in a year? And we have established bank holidays in Britain. And when we increase them, as we did for the royal wedding last year, it does have an impact on the economy. So I'm afraid it isn't possible to add to extra bank holidays. But it is right to celebrate, not just as I do as a Christian. I celebrate Christmas and Easter, but also to celebrate in our country Eid, Diwali, Vaisakhi and other festivals.
Okay, just before we wrap, I want to talk to you also a bit about 2015. Before I talk to you about your own political future, Prime Minister, I want to ask you a bit about You know, when elections happened in 2010, the number of MPs that were elected was 650. Less than 30 of those were from ethnic minority backgrounds. Why is it that there are so few Asians in government and in politics in this country? And do you want to change that? And do you see a Sikh from Southall ever entering 10 Downing Street?
I think I'm sure we'll have a British Indian Prime Minister, just as we have British Asian cabinet ministers today. Look, I think we've come a long way. I want us to see us go further. But if I look at my own party, the Conservative Party, which previously didn't have many British Asian members of Parliament, we've now got Alok Sharma, Priti Patel, we have Dola Popat in the House of Lords, we have Shailesh Vara, who's a minister in the government. You can see British Asians now making their way into Parliament, up through politics, and you can see them in more leading roles, whether it is in the military or in our courts, throughout our society. A good sign for the future. William Hague, our very successful Foreign Secretary, he's standing down from Parliament. His candidate replacing him, selected only last night, is a British Indian.
Okay. And just to wrap, Prime Minister, we spoke to you last year during Diwali. Thank you very much again for speaking to us this year. Next year, will we be speaking to you again here in 10 Downing Street as Prime Minister? And how important do you think the Asian vote is going to be for you?
Well, I very much hope you'll be speaking to me here in number 10 Downing Street, but that will be for the people to decide. This is what Britain and India met. One of the many things we have in common is our people choose our leaders, and that's the way it should be. I think the British Asian, the British Indian vote will be absolutely key at the next election. The argument I will be making is actually British Indians show the values that we need more of in this country. A devotion to family, the importance of community, the belief in enterprise. The people who've come, British Indians, whether they have come from Uganda, Kenya, Gujarat, Bengal, wherever they've come from, they've made a massive contribution to our country.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Thank you very much for talking to NDTV. Thank you. Thanks.